And welcome to episode 22 of the MatStats Show, fresh off a trip from Fargo, North Dakota at the USA Wrestling 16U and Junior Nationals. I'm Jason Bryant, joined by Glenn Gormley and Kevin Hazard, and we get to have fun today. Well, we always have fun, but today we get to talk about four-timers because that seems to be the pinnacle of one's career in high school in the states that are only 4 years. A four-time state champ is the deal. In college, it's an exclusive group of wrestlers who are four-time national champions. Of course, the COVID year makes the potential for more than that really, really dicey, but we're sticking with the four-time theme. A lot of research, a lot of names to go through, and a lot of educational information for you today because it's not just going to be on the five guys we know that have won Division I championships four times. That would be a rather short show. We'd just be saying the same thing about the legendaries you already know about. But before we get to that, Kevin Hazard, Glenn Gormley, what's been up with you guys? Start with you, Mr. Hazard.
For me, it's just been pretty much work. I did enjoy the, Fargo. Brian did have a two-time All-American. He placed in Greco and freestyle, which was really, really nice. Third in Greco, that was Caden Smith. So congratulations, Caden. That's a big deal. He got double wins.
That's one that makes me feel very old because my first year in Fargo was 1999, and guess who was wrestling on the raised platform that year? Caden's uncle, Christian, who was an 83.5-pound cadet at the time. So, and I know Caden's dad, Daniel, who actually, believe it or not, was at Western Branch and was at Pocosin for one day before a coaching situation at Western Branch sent him back over to Chesapeake. So that was a really thing. Like Daniel Smith, Caden's dad, almost went to my high school for his senior year. So that was a pretty interesting situation there. And I'm like, hey, that's Daniel's kid? Yep, sure enough. And I talked with Brian about Caden's performances. Tony Rotundo took some great shots over the weekend. Of course, he sent the group text with me and Brian with some pictures of Caden. So it's pretty cool to we're seeing kids that, I kind of, the kids that I grew up with. And then you're out there and you're seeing Steve Mako's son win a title, Eric Larkin's son win a title. You're seeing Damian Logan's son win a title. You're seeing Doug Schwab's son win a title. It's like, man, I've been doing this a while. You're the point where you guys I remember when their parents or something plays. So we've got the next generation of kids coming through and what was 25 years, 24 tournaments for me because I do count it because I was there for the COVID year. I was outside of the turf. My nephew got married during the canceled year. So I was in Fargo that year when nobody else was. So my streak is still intact. COVID be darned there. Glenn, we're going to be down at the convention this week in Fort Lauderdale as we record this for July 26th. It's always going to be a big day. I haven't been to the NWCA convention in a number of years, but Dan Weaver's going to have me doing who knows what. I know I'll be talking a lot, but what are you looking forward to with the upcoming NWCA convention?
I really think it's a great show that they put on there. Dan Weaver does run a really good show, as does Mike and the rest of the people at NWCA. I'm actually going to be one of the vendors there, just letting people know all about our MatStats show. So it's going to be a really good time.
All right. Talking MatStats. So today, Glenn goes into the pop culture references of the 80s and early 90s here with our Do you know Mars Blackman from Nike? And is it the shoes? So I was very happy to see this one as it came across before we started because I've become a bit of an Air Jordan guy. I've become a bit of a sneakerhead. At last count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, 9 pair of Air Jordans and a couple more Dunks in various Air Force Ones. So yeah, I'm a bit of a sneakerhead. I may have also hit on the UNC ones while in Fargo, much to the behest of one better half of mine. So I am owing the yard work quite a bit for the another pair of shoes that are coming in. But I love the reference here. Do you know? And that's the thing I love about this show is when Glenn has an assignment that's going to be it's going to be heavy stats. And it's like, all right, you're putting me to work. So I'm digging because I love educating the masses of wrestling people on names that you should know because with the number of schools we have, it is important for wrestling fans to pay attention to all levels of wrestling, not just the top bitty part of the pyramid. The elite of the elite is right, but all of our coaches and athletes, how many people were our high school coaches were elite coaches or elite athletes? Very, very small. So it's that groundswell of support. And a lot of them are Division II, Division III athletes. So, and some of those are really good, accomplished Division II, Division III athletes, etc. So we're going to get into that today. As always, Glenn, your favorite Bob Seger song. Take us away.
Yes, I feel like a number. And as Jason is saying, this is less of a statistical analysis show and more of a statistical education show to let you guys know about everybody who's done special things in the world's oldest and greatest sport. Okay, so we do the I feel like a number thing. I can't sing, so I'm not going to bother singing it. Then, of course, the next slide, we say this every show. The opinions expressed on this show don't necessarily reflect what the three of us don't all think alike. It doesn't have anything to do with the NWCA, what they think. We're just a subsidiary of them, but we think on our own. Okay. Now, we want to let people know about who won what titles and how many, and in all different things, men, women, NCAA, NAIA, the WCWA, the NCWC, which the latter two are women's things in case there's some dinosaurs out there who aren't following women wrestling enough. Okay. Now, our last show was about the greatest team ever, collegiate team. Okay. And on that show, I did a complete statistical analysis. But I'm trying to draw here and explain to people why it's really difficult to do a show on who the greatest individual wrestler is. So I'll try to paint an analogy. I'll try to go through these slides quickly. Slide 5 shows the people who have won the most NBA titles. Bill Russell, in case anyone who doesn't know this, has won 11. It goes all the way down. Some famous guys named Michael Jordan won 6. Do you know? Do you know? Do you know? Okay. And LeBron has won 4. Okay. Now, with that being said, if you get into a debate right now with anybody at any bar, they're going to say the greatest basketball player ever is Michael Jordan or LeBron James. Well, why not Russell? He's won 11 titles, which is more than Jordan and James have won combined, which is an interesting stat. Okay. Well, let's look at other sports. Then slide 7 shows you the great brothers, the Rocket and the Pocket Rocket won 11 and his brother won 8. The great one, Wayne Gretzky, only won 4. He's tied for 51st for most Stanley Cups. Okay. So there's no question for a stats guy that the great one, Wayne Gretzky, is the greatest player ever. Okay. But if you just look at titles, he's not even in the running. Well, what about other sports? Okay. When you shift to slide 9, okay, if you get into a conversation about the greatest football player ever, everyone always says Tom Brady because Brady has won 7 Super Bowls, which is more than anybody else. Okay. But the famous kicker, Adam Vinatieri, who won a Super Bowl as Brady's teammate and also won a Super Bowl as Peyton's teammate, only 2 people have won more Super Bowls than Adam Vinatieri. Are you trying to tell me if you just use Super Bowl titles, only 2 players were more valuable in NFL history than Adam Vinatieri? Okay.
And in case you're wondering, Adam Vinatieri is a kicker.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's not leave that important fact out. I mean, we've got a quarterback and a defensive player and then a kicker in our top 3 on this page. And I like kickers,
Adam Vinatieri,
yeah.
He did hit that field goal to help the Patriots win the game after the tuck rule happened with the Tom Brady game against the Raiders.
I was in Richmond, Virginia at the Virginia Challenge Middle School State Duels that night. I remember that game. It was in the snow. I remember that one. Yeah.
I remember that game well.
Moving forward.
So anyway.
Brady won titles for the Bucs. Forward, I'm happy. Go Bucs.
Yep. Yeah. And I put this slide in there about Otto Graham. People keep on saying he won that many NFL titles. He wasn't always in the NFL, Otto Graham. Okay. So, and then the next slide gets more a little bit depth into stats. I don't want to get too depth in this because we want to talk about wrestling mainly. But football has 22 players on the field at the same time. And Brady didn't play defense. He didn't kick the field goal. So he's not on the field nearly as much. It's easier to dominate a smaller sport like a basketball or hockey or wrestling if it's individual. Okay. Now, let's go to the last famous team sport in America. Slide 12. Baseball. Yogi Berra has won 10 World Series titles. Okay. Vic Raschi, the greatest baseball player from William and Mary, has won 6. And 2 of the greatest players ever, Ted Williams and Barry Bonds, have never won a World Series title. Okay, now, nobody in the world would say, no sabermetrics guy would say that Bonds and Williams are not 2 of the greatest players and Vic Raschi's better than them, etc., just because of titles won. But somehow in football, we say that. Okay, now, I do have a question. Kevin, Vic Raschi came to William Mary in 1938. Kevin, were you a schoolmate of his?
No. I know that I am ancient, but I am not that ancient. I was not even thought of then. I'm a generation and a half behind him. But he was a really, really good football player.
Baseball player, yeah.
Baseball, football.
Yeah. Okay. So the next slide, the best way MatStats can explain this is let Yogi Berra take over. We all know about his famous quotes. When you come to a fork in the road, you take it. It's like deja vu all over again. In baseball, you don't know nothing. No one goes there nowadays. It's too crowded. That was one of my favorite lines ever, being an owner of a crowded bar, that Jason Bryant stopped coming in because it was too crowded. Nobody came there.
It's just a little too far away from the campus of that school in Norfolk. Now, I will also say one of my favorite ones that I think this might be attributed to Berra's half this game is 90% mental. I think that was another one that may be attributed.
That's
95% of baseball is half mental.
Something like that, yeah. That's always a good one.
Yeah. It's 95% of baseball is half mental. So, okay, this would be a huge task to do something like this. Maybe one day I'll get a PhD on this topic and be able to speak educationally about it. But until that day, we're going to talk about the people who won 4 titles and other people who've won the most in certain categories. Now, in wrestling, 5 Division I men's, 5 people have won 4 titles, 51 have won 3 titles, and of course, our legend of all legends, Dan Gable, has won 2. Nobody's telling me there's 56 wrestlers better than Dan Gable. That would be blasphemous. Okay, so I'm not even getting into that. Okay, so that's the reason I'm not prepared to say who's the greatest wrestler ever. In track, of course, it's much easier. A time is a time. Okay, like Usain Bolt and Flojo are the fastest human beings ever, 1 male, 1 female. Okay. Now, where did I get this data about all these champions? Well, most of this data comes from Jason Bryant's annual guide to wrestling. Okay. And all the 4-time champions, I got it, where, from Jason Bryant. So,
and I will back that up.
Let's get on. I'm going to let Jason and Kevin take over some of the...
I was just going to say, every year I use Jason's guide for my NCAA picks. It is the best source of information out there.
The problem is if you're using it for picks and you're losing, that's not a problem of my data. That's a problem of your drafting. So we'll just leave that one. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him pick the right guy in the first round. Take it from a guy who picked Keyshawn Johnson round. No, I picked Cordell Stewart first round one year in my fantasy football league. Actually, still won the league that year with the sub 500 record going into the playoffs. So. As far as the wrestling picks, I can't really speak on that because I work for the Big Blue Disc when it comes to the postseason, so I am not doing any pick'ems in that regard because that would be forbidden because we have to do the whole reads that say don't bet on it. So just putting that out there. I can enjoy people in their pick'em games, but I cannot actually participate. So I just give you the resources to do something with it. Moving forward.
Yes. Moving forward, slide 21 starts the fun part about this show. There are 29 4-time collegiate champions. Kevin, let us know what divisions they come from.
Okay, just starting at the top, there are 5 from Division I men's, 5 from Division II men's, actually 2 from Division III men's. Does that mean Division III is better? And 8 NAIA. And on the women's side, there's 4 WCWA, 2 NCWC, 0 NAIA, 0 women's NCAA. Now, to me, the most interesting thing is that the WCA already has 4 four-time champs. It hadn't been around that long, comparatively. Well, I'm sorry, the NCWC has not been around that long, and you already have 2. That's pretty impressive. And we'll talk about one of them later, but I've been watching her since high school.
Mm-hmm. And as far as the distinction goes, just to give you some, because you know us in semantics, the WCWA was the initial governing body for women's college wrestling. It was it started officially, I want to say, like 2007, 2008. There were women's college nationals starting in 2004. So for the purposes of history, I do group the first women's college nationals, the WCN acronym, with the WCWA until it kind of came to completion in 2020. Now, the NAIA hosted its first women's official national championships this year. They did have a championship invitational the previous years. The year it was canceled was also COVID year. So we do have the length of time for 4-time women's All-Americans on the NAIA side, but they did not compete in one of those years. So the 4-time champion distinction is actually not yet available, as the disclaimer at the bottom does. The National Collegiate Women's Championships, which is the NCAA schools, but does not have the NCAA Big Blue Disc yet. Their history is still created as we are emerging sport, but it doesn't yet have the NCAA logo on it. So it's a national college championship with the NCAA teams. That has been around 4 years, and we did have our first 2 4-time champs. So that's where the NCAA Women's Zero comes in right now, because we haven't had one yet. And the combined thing, that's the one that I like to get to, because those are like the bar trivia questions we get to, and we'll touch on those when we get to them. So just a little clarity on how the women's structure is, because, again, they're in the foundational stages of the sport in terms of the college championship stage. So that's where we're at there.
Okay, then the next slide shows you the 5-time men's D1 champions. And I think everyone knows the people: Pat Smith, Cale Sanderson, Logan Stieber, Kyle Dake, and Yanni D. And it is a wild thing that Cornell has 2 of those 5.
Yeah, and the asterisks on this one denote undefeated. So you will see that more than once, because if you were not aware, we have more than one undefeated collegiate national champion across college wrestling.
Well, the other thing on Cale also is he's 4-time champ and 4-time OW.
Okay, and here's where
pretty amazing.
Yeah. Okay, and here's where we Jason Bryant gave us the information to dive deep into this. Go ahead, Jason, run with this. This is your baby.
Yeah, this is the near misses. This is one, the what ifs, because a lot of it, we'll start with the first name on the list, Ed Bannock. This is why people regard his match with Mark Schultz in the NCAA finals to be one of the greatest of all time, because it ended Bannock's run. He had already won 2 titles, going in for the 3rd, and he's got Mark Schultz, who's a freaking hammer, as we all know. He eventually won it, so we've got a 1-1-2-1. Then Lincoln McElravy, who famously lost to Steve Marinetti from Illinois in the finals. We have another 1-1-2-1. Both of those guys are Hawkeyes. Now, we go to 1947, so when Yanni and Spencer Lee won their titles as true freshmen, it was the first time since 1947 that 2 true freshmen had won titles in the same year. The point about that, going back to 47, is this is post-World War II. So in 46, freshmen weren't eligible when we first started wrestling back up. Now, granted, some schools were still wrestling, but the NCAA championships didn't exist. Now, in 47, they gave all freshmen eligibility to kind of like coerce the college sports to come back. And of those, we had 5 freshman champions that year. 2 of them were from Cornell College, Lowell Lang and Dick Hauser. Lowell Lang was in a car accident in January of 1948 with Dick Hauser. It was several miles away from the Cornell College campus in Mount Vernon, Iowa. And Cornell College to this day is still the only private school to win an NCAA championship and what we now consider Division I. It was just the NCAA back then. It was not even college or university yet. So Lang came back from injury and won 2 more titles. If Lowell Lang is not in a car accident and doesn't, I believe, fracture his vertebrae or something, he's it's common perception is he would or could have been the first NCAA 4-time, and he would have no longer been dropped off of these lists because he didn't even place 4 times. Of course, he can't be concluded on a strict statistical list, which goes to Glenn's point that looking at this strictly from a statistical standpoint makes it very hard to determine who the best was of all time. Plus, we have eras, we have eligibility of the post World War II. Then we have the Gable era, as we say, the 4-year eligibility of wrestling past 1968, 1969. So it altered the course of wrestling history. And I also have to give a shout out to that information came from the late Arno Neiman, who was a Cornell University guy who wrote a book, The Dream Team of 1947, about the Cornell College National Championship team. So I gleaned that information there. And in Lowell Lang, if he's not in a car accident, I think the entire lore of wrestling history changes. Pat Smith's situation becomes, wow, the first since. So in 47, 48, 49, 50. So 1950, oddly enough, another Iowa team won it that year, Iowa State Teachers College, now known as Northern Iowa. So, that's the one interesting piece of history here. And how about this? How tough was this dude? Came back from like a fractured spine and won the title the next year. I mean, yeesh. I mean, they built him different back then, Kevin.
Coming out of the war. All those guys that came back from the war were different.
Yeah. And then the last 2 names on this list, Spencer Lee, who, as we know, recency, 1-1-1-6 as he lost in the semis to Matt Ramos from Purdue, and then injury defaulted the 6th. And Jaden Cox, who went 1-5-1-1, losing as a sophomore. So the near miss there, I mean, he won as a freshman, won 2 more titles. So I feel like the 1-1-2 ones are more of the near miss. Although if you look who Jaden Cox wrestled that year, it was Snyder and Morgan McIntosh. So that's who the L's were, if memory serves. So the near misses there in Division I are quite interesting. And again, Lowell Lang probably could be a story upon its own, but there's so little written about it. Thankfully, Arno, who left us a couple years ago, did have a chance to write a story about that dream team in 1947, the Cornell College National Championship team. So that's where that information came from.
Okay, and there's been 21 Division I freshman champions, which is very interesting, that were eventual 4-time All-Americans. Spencer Lee is the only 3-time Division I champion to lose in a senior year.
Division I, note the distinction because that's a little foreshadowing to what's coming up next. You will not believe this stuff, folks, as we move to Division II.
Correct. You won't. So, Kevin, let us know who the 5 Division II champions were, please.
It's Tim Wright from SIU Edwardsville, Dan Russell, Portland State, whose brother was, per Dan Gable, the best high school wrestler he ever saw. Cole Provence from Central Oklahoma, Les Sigmund, Nebraska, Omaha, and Joey Davis from Notre Dame College.
Again, note the asterisks. The Iceman, Joey Davis from Compton, California, 4-time undefeated Division II champion for Frank Romano at Notre Dame College. Tim Wright was the first of the 4 NCAA champions because he did it first in Division II. And then now comes the real dicey stuff. So Russell's senior year, Russell wins it for Portland State. So a 4-timer there. The next year and then subsequent year after that, Tony Champion and James Sisson are 3-time champs going into their senior year and losing the finals consecutive years. It was like once Dan Russell won his 4th for Portland State, the wrestling gods were going to say, nope, no more 4-timers from Portland State, having guys losing the finals the next year and then the year following. It's also the only time in history, as the note says, that we've had 4-timers losing the finals as seniors in any division. Steve Saxland of North Dakota State, who is a guy that's actually been really good to us over the years with his Cone's a restaurant out there in Fargo and has the 3X gear that it was kind of one of the more popular brands for wrestling in the Midwest. He's part of the Herd Horns group, so they've always done a good job for us there. And then Mark Dodgen from Central Oklahoma goes 1-3-1-1. So Saxland, again, we talked about building people like Lowell Lang different. You build people from Pipestone, Minnesota a little different too. You'll be a little tough to survive those winters and then willingly go to Fargo in the wintertime and wrestle for NDSU and Coach Bucky Maughan back when they're powerhouse Division II years. So just a weird note that Russell wins 4, and then the next 2 years, wrestlers from Portland State fall in the finals to prevent themselves from being 4-timers. That's just a weird stat in wrestling history.
Yes, then we'll move on to the men's Division III, 4-time champion, slide 28. Go ahead, Kevin.
So Division 3, it's Marcus Levesser from Augsburg and Riley Lefevre from Wabash.
Interesting note about, one, Levesser again, asterisks because he was undefeated, started his career at Minnesota, went across the street to Augsburg, played football and wrestled. So he was an undefeated. The guy was a hammer. I mean, he had some major wins, won Fargo. The guy was the truth and just said, hey, you know what? I'm going to play football too. And Augsburg had some hammers back in the day. Lefevre, when he was a 4-timer, was not undefeated, but had his share of wins over Division I All-Americans. And one of his championship years, him and 2 of his brothers were in the finals the same year. Now, we know about the Fine Silvers from Duke with 4 brothers that qualified for the tournament. But the Lefevres, it's the first time 3 brothers in the same tournament have made the NCAA finals in the same year. So that was in Hershey, Pennsylvania, which was Bryant Hazard was on the microphone there, and that was just one of those memorable things in history. Like, okay, we've got 3 of them from the Little Giants of Wabash. Near misses here in Division III. Now, D3 is very unforgiving because what I love about the Division III tournament, especially now, even though I didn't start going to 2009, is the unforgiving nature of wrestling is pretty much on display because a lot of the Division III guys and the NAIA guys now, they're maybe coming out of high school, they might know some of the names, but they're not like, junkies about knowing who names are. Like, I don't care if you're a D1 guy. You're just going to go out there, yeah, I'm just going to beat you. Who are you? And you get a lot of upsets in the first round of Division III. I mean, a 1 seed loses in the first round every year. Sean Smith here from Delaware Valley goes 1-1-2-1. Now, what I find interesting about a couple of these stats here is these guys in D3 and the NAIA that are on these past the near misses lost to eventual 3-time and 2 and 3-time champs. Like they were in the middle of the streaks crossed. So it creates these dream battles like the Bannock-Schultz battle. Well, we've had those a couple times in other divisions. Tim Jacketto at Trenton State, which is now currently known as TCNJ, went 1-3-1-1, losing to Sean Sheldon of Albany. Sean Sheldon, a notable name in Greco-Roman, been on the scene and a coach for a long time. Raphael Wilson from Augustana, that's the one in Rock Island, Illinois, 1-5-1-1. National champ as a freshman, wins a pigtail, and then again, D3 craziness, gets beat in the round of 16, then loses again to Concy Semis, takes 5th, never loses another match again, winning 91 in a row, which, as you see on the sheet, ranks 11th all-time in college wrestling history. So, again, if Raphael Wilson doesn't have a bad day or a bad tournament as a sophomore back in the 90s, does he have a win streak that is, like, just immeasurable? Because right now, we know Kales is 159, but, behind that, we've got a couple more. Maybe that's another show about win streaks, but Raphael Wilson was a bad dude in his day. So of those, we had 5 freshman champs. You don't redshirt in Division III. Now, granted, some guys come in after they transfer and have served a red shirt, for example. Maybe as a freshman they redshirted, still preserve your eligibility, but you might get a hardship year, but typically you're wrestling in your Division III, you're going to wrestle. So not a whole lot. You're a freshman. Guess what? You're in the lineup. So not a whole lot of that seasoning to save you for the next year in Division III. So a lot fewer champions there. Now move to the NAIA where we had 8 4-time national champions rather, and you see some schools that look familiar there now. Lock Haven, which is currently a Division I wrestling program, D2 school and everything. St. Cloud, which is a Division II powerhouse. They've won 5 national championships. Simon Fraser is in Division II now. Now, Montana State Northern, Southern Oregon, and Grandview still NAIA schools. As a matter of fact, Southern Oregon and Montana State Northern, 2 are kind of the stalwarts of the NAIA. And back in the day when the NAIA started wrestling in the late 50s, it served a lot of the small schools very well. And this is where those schools had dual affiliations. So Lock Haven was an NCAA school and had a dual affiliation with the NAIA. So again, the common misconception back in the day was all the NAIA qualified for the NCAA championships. No, you could only compete in the NCAA championships if your school was an NCAA school. Now, if you wrestled in the NAIA, it really didn't have anything to do with it back then. They were completely safe. You could wrestle in both. Matter of fact, that's how Gray, Coach Simons, had 7 national championships. But this is where the history goes. Gray Simons was the first collegiate 4-time national champion. Now, this goes back. He wouldn't be the first of the 4-timers collegiately if Lowell Lang doesn't get hurt. So Gray Simons' place in history directly impacted by Lowell Lang in 1948. Jerry Swope of Lockhaven. Jim Hazewinkle was an Olympian, and of course his son. Let's see, Dave is Sam's son. So Uncle Jim and his twin brother Dave were All-Americans at St. Cloud State. Bob Molly of Simon Fraser wrestled Bruce Baumgartner in the '84 Olympic Finals. He was a CFL Hall of Famer for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and his son actually wrestles. Justin Abdu is the current coach at Simon Fraser, which is the only Canadian school in the NCAA. Actually has a win over Cale Sanderson in his international career. Turk Lords was a bad mamma jamma. Brock Gutchis was a 4-timer. And then most recently, Evan Hansen. No, not the Broadway one, but the one from Iowa is your 4-timer. Now, we did have a near miss this year. We had a wrestler going for 4, and he got beat in the semis. Sound familiar, Division I? Badardin Bagi Boldma. He is a Mongolian native. He came to the United States, wrestled at Northwest Tech, where he had the junior college placement, learning folk style, then went on the run, had the extra year, the COVID year. So he was 1-1-1 in the NAIA the extra year, beat in the semifinals by Shea Ruffridge in one of the craziest matches I've ever seen. Boldma is down by a point with under 30 to go, gets a takedown on the edge. So here we go. We got the restart, I think, with 12 seconds to go. And Boldma's on top, up by a point. Ruffridge gets a reversal, like at the buzzer, to win it. And it was just it was a crazy sequence. And I'm just like, that just happened. That just happened. Now, it didn't have the cavalcade of holy earth-shaking arena-ness like Tulsa did when Spencer Lee got beat, but it was still a notable thing because it would have been historic with an NAIA 4-timer, and of course a 5-time actual place winner because he has the junior college year. Ronnie James at Central Oklahoma lost in the quarterfinals to Tim Molitor of Southwest Minnesota State. Ends up beating Molitor for 3rd, but that was a 1-1-1-3. John Melling went 1-1-2-1 and lost to Bubba Taylor of Findlay. And again, Taylor was a 3-time champion, so we talked about that intersection of champions. And of course, a couple back in the day, Wedemeyer from Winona State and Monroe from Wayne State of Nebraska. So the NAIA has a long wrestling history, and craziness ensues in that division as well.
Just a quick couple of things about, I was looking at the names when we get ready to start the show, and Hazewinkle, he's a 4-timer. His twin brother was also at St. Cloud State with him, and both of them were a couple-time Olympians. And his brother Dave was an Olympic finalist, silver medalist, and Dave's son is an NCAA champ and in Greco. And
he was an Olympian in freestyle, world teamer in Greco actually. But Sam sadly has the 3-3-3-2 distinction on his college career. It was one of those things where I remember when he got beat in the finals, it was like, I feel sad because Sam's a great guy. So, Hazewinkle family. And then, of course, the Hazewinkles are a number of 5. I think 5 is the current count Olympians from Anoka High School in Anoka, Minnesota, about 15 minutes north of me right now. So here's some numbers if you're watching on the screen about the number of freshman champions. Again, we've got diciness when it comes to the extra eligibility because the NAIA wrestled the week before COVID shut us down in 2020. So they actually had guys wrestle as 5-time placers. Then the fun stuff. This is where the trivia comes in. Glenn, I felt like I taught you one on this one. People know Chuck Jean as the enigmatic guy that he was. I never had a chance to meet him, but 2-time national champ at Iowa State, then goes to Adams State, which was in Alamosa, Colorado, wins 2 more there. So he's a 4-time champ split across divisions. Johnny Nimmo of Central Oklahoma, uninterrupted 4-time champ at Central Oklahoma, but the school reclassified in his years. So he was 1-1-1-1, but it was 3 were in the NAIA, and then when they were into Division II, he won again. And Nosomi Pozo I thought there'd be more of these actually, but he's the only 2-time junior college champ and 2-time NAIA champ, and he did it for Nyack, North Iowa Area Community College, and Life University in Marietta, Georgia. I believe he is now the new coach at St. Thomas University in Florida, if I'm not mistaken. So that's the three champs that are four-timers in combined division. So before we get to the women's side of things, that's the nuance to me here is not just Chuck G, but just the school reclassifies. Now you have to wait a couple years. Usually it's a 2-year wait from NAIA to Division II, I think. But when you're moving from D2 to D1, you've got like a 4-year wait. So these type of things aren't really happening anymore. But it's very unique that Chuck Jean is the only D1 NAIA guy. So that's nutty. Actually, it was University Division because it happened before the actual divisional structure. But people know about Chuck Jean, guys. I know you guys know some legendary stories about this guy.
And from what I understand, they're all true.
May have led to why he ended up at Adams State, but
could have. All right, now we're going to switch to the women's side. Kevin, let us know the four-timers from the women's WCWA.
The first is Maryland's own Helen Morales, Miss Missouri Baptist, and Simon Frazier, and Victoria Anthony, Simon Frazier, Emily Webster, Oklahoma City, and Kayla Miracle from Campbellsville. And she wrestled for her dad. But all four of them were really fine, are still really fine. Of course, Helen was our first women's Olympic champion.
Yeah, Webster undefeated, 118-0. I believe it's the 6th longest streak. It's on my list. She's in the top 10 as far as longest college wrestling win streak. Is the only undefeated women's champion in WCWA history. So we've got that going for us. Now, this is where we get to the crossover. Michaela Hutchison, who was the first girl to win a state title against the boys when she did it as a sophomore, I believe, when she was in high school in Alaska. And I think there's like 50 Hutchisons up there. There's not that many, but that's a big wrestling family up there. 1-1-2-1. That loss was to Maroulis in 3 periods. So the 4-timer and the eventual 3-timer cross pass. Hillary Greening of Simon Frazier. Now, let's do a side note on Simon Frazier. They started wrestling in what was then known as the CIS, which was the Canadian kind of NCAA. Then it's now called U Sport. Well, when Simon Frazier reclassified, it's like, hey, we're going to go to the NCAA. They already had a women's team in place. And they've had women's college wrestling up there since the early 2000s. So Simon Frazier wasn't one of the first teams with it, but they've had a team a long, long time. So they've got that structure built in with their men's and women's wrestling and the clubs like the Burnaby Wrestling Club up there. You've got Abdu and Mike Jones was coaching there for a while, and Dave McKay has had the club. So a lot of good wrestling in British Columbia. So the structure for Simon Frazier when they came in to the NCAA and became WCWA eligible, and now they're National Collegiate Women's Championships eligible. They came in with credentials right away. This isn't like they started from scratch, but Greening went 1-1-2-2. She was 191, and again, her path crossed with Brittany Delgado of Oklahoma City, who was a South Carolina native who won a bunch of titles when the foundation of the women's freestyle tournament started in Fargo, and then Mars Lambert, a Virginia native, when she was at King. So it was like there's some near misses there, but Hutchison and Maroulis hitting when they did in their early years, that was like, that was a massive, massive matchup. With the WCWA, we got 9 freshmen of 1 titles that went on to become 4-time All-Americans. Again, on the screen here is just the miscellaneous freshman champion information. Now we go to the other divisions, the NCWC, which is the NCAA schools in their championships now, as we have a true split. In our 4th year, they've wrestled before COVID canceled the season, so they were into February, I believe, when in 2020. Emily Shilson won her first 3 titles at Augsburg here in Minnesota, then had a year of eligibility. I think she still got another one, actually. Transferred down to McKendree along with Sydney Kimber, another Alaska native who was a 4-time champ, and just actual truth. So they're the first 4-timers in the NCAA era of not yet an NCAA championship. But Shilson's still undefeated, by the way. So we don't yet have – I don't think her career's done. She could go for another title. She's also the only 5-time women's collegiate champion because she also has a WCWA title when she was a freshman. So she's got 5 titles. So we're in the Gray Simons type of world of multiple titles. Yeah, Emily Shilson's got 5 of them and counting. So she could use that extra year, I believe. So that's where we're at with the NCWC.
I remember watching her at the Nationals when she was in high school, because I remember, and she's a 6-time Minnesota State champion.
She's
in
won
high
a
school.
lot. She won Fargo 6 times too. 2 cadets, 4 juniors.
And she qualified 3 times for the boys championship in Minnesota. I mean,
I'd
been
lost
the
count of
real
where she
deal.
did in the high school
She was
side.
she weighed like 60 pounds.
She was in my school
watching her
district.
wrestle.
Yeah, she was in my school district her senior year because Moundsview. I'm in the Moundsview school district. She went to Moundsview High School her senior year. So, yeah. Now moving forward, Glenn, this is where the old timer back when D2 and D3 could go. This is where that argument seems to get rekindled.
Yes, and it's interesting you say that, Jason, because Kevin and I are old timers, and I don't think a session goes by when we're in the suite when someone doesn't say they need to include Division II and Division III again. Okay, back in my day. So anyway, there have been 6 different wrestlers who qualified via Division II that have won 9 NCAA Division I titles. Okay, Carl, go ahead, Kevin. Let us know who they are.
Well, it's Carlton Hasselrig from University of Pennsylvania, Johnstown, and 3-time qualified, 3-time D1 placing. Jesse Reyes, CSB, 84. Dan Cuestas, again CSB, 81 and 82. Joe Gonzalez, John Azevedo, again, all from CSB, 1980. So they had one heck of a program. And, bunches of NCAA champions. And then Floyd Shorty Hitchcock from Bloomsburg, 1974 at 177 pound. He also won it.
And Gonzalez and Azevedo have the record for best single season record ever that year. They're 1 and 2. Isn't that correct, Jason?
Sounds about right. I don't think I have the record right in front of me. I haven't looked. Actually, that's not something I've actually looked up.
56 and 0 and 55 and 0, whatever it is. They're 1 and 2 on the list.
That sounds pretty accurate because, Then again, we have to make sure what's official and what's not. If that was on the books at the time, that counts because we don't retroactively take wins and losses away or ties.
Yeah, that's a sore subject, taking wins away. I think Jason got back at me there. I haven't mentioned that topic. Okay. Kevin, let us know about the guys that qualified through D3 and won it.
D3, it's Ken Mallory from Montclair State. He won it at 134 pounds in 78. I was there. It was at College Park. And Tom Martucci, what is that, Trenton?
That was what was known as Trenton State, now known as the College of New Jersey. So
okay,
yep.
1981, 190-pounder, and that was in Princeton.
Right down the street. Right down the street. TC&J is technically in Ewing. So it's what, maybe 10 minutes, if that, depending on traffic.
Oh yeah, 10 minutes. Yeah.
And which jug handles you take.
I was at both of those tournaments as a young kid, so I just thought Division III kids won all the time.
Yeah, I mean, they both could have obviously had really good careers at D1.
All right, then we get into a little bit of more fun stuff I've listed here. We don't need to name them. You guys can look at it. It's the conference that the school is in right now. Who the best wrestler, meaning the one who won the most titles from that conference, okay? And for example, like you see there, the American Athletic and the Sun Belt, no one from that school there has ever won conference. So you have all the different schools there, the ones that have FBS schools, and then FCS schools are next. And of course, they've won less titles, all those divisions.
I do got to add on our sheet here. I do have, I blanked on the school, but I did put Nick Gallo in there for the CAA because Hofstra is in the CAA currently. So don't want to forget that.
Thank you for that. And
TJ Jaworski was a 3-timer from UNC, but he started his career at Okie State.
Yep, he did.
Transferred out after his freshman year.
So we keep going. We get to slide 43 again. This is the cool stuff because what I like what Glenn did here is applying the all sports focus to wrestling because a lot of our wrestling fans will just say, oh, well, they're a Big 12 school, like looking at like the affiliates, for example. Well, no, they're just in the Big 12 for wrestling. This is the all sports structure. This is what, when we talk about multimedia rights things and conference restructuring, these are the names of the conferences that are moving the needle in terms of where teams are going. The EIWA isn't dictating on which basketball schools are shifting conferences. It's the basketball and football all sports conferences that are shifting where the non-revenue and Olympic sports are going. So I like what you did here, Glenn, especially putting the current spin on what we've got. And by the way, yes, the CAA has a new name. It is no longer the Colonial. It is now the Coastal. So, yeah. That was as of this week. By the way, Campbell is back, is in the CAA as an all-sports member now. When I was coming through at that school in Norfolk, they were a member for wrestling. Oddly enough, as was Virginia Tech at one point. But we got a lot of stuff here. Now, the note that Glenn's got it on top of the screen, if you're listening, is Stephen Neal won 3 Super Bowls, and he went to a school that didn't have football. So that's a unique one for you at CSU
Yes,
Bakersfield.
And here's another thing here, guys. This is really very wrestling specific, is the PSAC, which is a Division II conference. Now, many of these schools wrestle Division I level. However, they have 6 or 7 multiple champions, okay? And when I say or 7, Carlton Hasselrig School is, Pitt Johnstown, is in the PSAC now, but they were not in the PSAC when he won his titles. Okay, so it's really a list of the who's who of wrestling. Gray Simons, Carlton Hasselrig, Ricky Bonomo, Corey Colott, Kurt Angle, Jack Kuvo, and of course Wade Chalice. You could make an argument who's the greatest 118/125 pounder ever, and you really got to start with Gray Simons and Ricky Bonomo. I mean, and not far after that, Jack Kuvo.
As far as your PSAC stuff, yeah, we've got some interesting notes here because, again, East Stroudsburg is back now. They reclassified back to Division II. Pitt Johnstown's always been Division II, but we've got Lock Haven, Clarion, Bloomsburg, and Edinburgh. And oddly enough, we've got the names of those schools are what they are, but like we've got the Penn West stuff going on with the Pennsylvania State school system. Slippery Rock had wrestling for quite a while as a Division I school. There are some rumblings that they could be moving back. I know it's a money thing to bring wrestling back to the Rock, but this is where we stand with that because look at all the titles won by the PSAC, 28 to 31, depending
titles
on how you count.
If you count Carlton Hasselrig, 28 if you don't. Okay, and then let's talk about one of the premier Power 5 conferences, the Pac-12. They've only won 20 titles compared to how many the PSAC have won. It shows a regionality there with wrestling. Okay. Kevin Hazard, let us know about people that have won men's D1 titles for multiple schools. There's 2 people.
And the first on the list is Nick Siriano, who won it at Rutgers and then won it at Michigan. And he started his career at Penn State. So, and then Steve Mocco won it at Iowa and then Oklahoma State.
And his son Michael just did something.
The big guys. Siriano was a 25, 33, and Mocco was a heavyweight.
And his son Michael just did something Steve never did in Fargo, win a Greco medal, because Steve didn't wrestle Greco. He was all freestyle, but Michael Mocco was a double champ this year. So another throw in there for our recency coming off of Fargo and then the Mocco name.
And that's because you can't do a foot sweep in Greco.
He did a wicked one in freestyle, though.
He had a great foot sweep.
And here's another little thing. The family with the most titles. The Pearys won 9, the Smiths won 7. Both of those families, that's a mouthful, as many titles as those families won. Okay.
You almost have to give it to the Smiths because that was one generation. The Pearys was dad and 2 sons. I don't know.
Yep. It's still a family. Yeah. Okay. Now, here's a little bit of fun. Who were the best NFL players? Where did they place in wrestling? Carlton Hasselrig, okay, as we know, won 6 titles, 3 Division II, 3 Division I. Stephen Neal won 2. Then Lorenzo Neal, okay, placed 7th Interesting thing here. He was the first person to lose the old 30-second tiebreaker in the NCAAs. He lost to John Morris of Lehigh.
That's a name we'll hear about a little bit more later, by the way.
Yes. Okay. So the next thing is the WWE guys.
But I think you got to go back for that, and just the pretty cool thing was Hazard and Neal ended up playing the NFL, and neither of them had football in college.
Yeah, exactly.
That was really interesting.
Yeah. So then we go to the WWE situation. All right. Gable Stevenson is, even all the young guys know, have won 2 titles. Kurt Angle won 2. Brock Lesnar won 1. And interesting enough, Kurt Angle lost to John Morris at the Junior Nationals back in the old days when they were at Cedar Falls, Iowa. And I got a funny story for you guys about this. John Morris walks in the Greenleaf one time with his wife, about 20 years after high school. And I look at him and say real loud, "That guy beat Kurt Angle." Okay. And he turns to his wife, goes, "I told you I beat him." Even John's wife of like 15 years at the time would not believe that he could have beaten that monster Kurt Angle.
Well, and who did Lesnar lose to his junior year in college?
Stephen Neal.
Stephen Neal. So there's a little tie between those two.
And another tie to bring it back to our other programs with our other episodes that are about new programs. Brock went to Bismarck State Junior College, which recently announced they were bringing wrestling back. Brock wrestled the very last match in school history. They were dropping the program. He won the junior college nationals that year at heavyweight in the last match in school history until they're going to bring it back. So, we got all sorts of things tying the MatStats shows together.
Yeah. Okay, then we're going to have a little more fun here at MatStats. The 3 high schools that the MatStats guys went to, we named the best people ever. My alma mater, Penn Charter. Dr. Billy Stewart was an NCAA champ for Lehigh. Kevin Hazard's alma mater, Madison, had Tony Bennett, not the singer, the wrestler, who came in 6th. And, of course, I think the show almost is about John Morris. Jason Bryant's high school, Pocosin. John Morris came in 6th. Seems to be his show here. Okay.
Yeah, we've had a ton of Fargo All-Americans in Cedar Falls. You know, a ton of. We've had 4-time champs. We've had wrestlers go, but John Morris is the only Division I All-American for the Bull Islanders. So we've had several in the show. Most recently, Patrick McCormick, the grandson of one Pat McCormick and son of Mike McCormick. He wrestled twice there for the University of Virginia. So each year at the Nationals, I got to introduce Patch. So that was one of those cool things where, one year he was wrestling Kaisen Tarakina, who was from Hawaii, and it was just so interesting, fitting to tie this into the Pocosin story that Tarakina and McCormick were from the 2 furthest places geographically than any wrestler in the tournament that met. So there's like 5,000 miles between them. And of course, that nugget gets thrown out in round 1 of the NCAA championship. So whenever there's a Bull Island reference, we're on top of that.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate the big John Morris references.
Yeah. He made the semifinals at Junior Nationals that year. He lost to Matico from Virginia Beach. Okay.
Was that the Matico that was the last coach at William & Mary, or was that his brother?
No, that was
John.
Okay.
He wasn't the last coach. We had people after John, but he basically was the last coach of anything.
But it was the Matico reference there was the black singlets from Kellum, correct?
You got that right.
Okay, well, we can touch on that later. We're not talking about that school in Williamsburg.
Yeah,
moving forward. Here's the fun stuff. Of course, the William & Mary love train continues.
Actually, we are talking about that school in Williamsburg now. So glad you said this. Okay. We said some stuff here about the person who wrestled who did the best for any person of this category, that category, division, conference, etc. I got to throw something in here. In case anybody doesn't know this name, of course, the people in this show know the name, and everyone at William & Mary does. Buzz Winchesky, who was an EIWA champ, a 3-time qualifier, wrestled at the University of Tennessee and William & Mary. Okay. He is being inducted to the NASA Inventors Hall of Fame. He has at least 20 patents. It could be more. I have no idea what these patents are in because it's way over all our heads. But I wanted to give a shout out to Buzz and congratulations. And let me tell you guys a special story too about Buzz. Okay. I was lucky enough to be a friend of Buzz and one of Buzz's coaches. And we found him when he transferred out of Tennessee. I called Gray Simons. And Gray said, yeah, Buzz is the best freshman we got. And he's definitely the smartest kid we've ever had here too. Okay. Here's my favorite story about Buzz, Kathy Wojcicki, Claire, and Louie. I was in the worst place of my life in 2011, and I don't have many memories of it, but I have a distinct memory of the Winchesky family coming in. And Buzz and Kathy and their children really helped me through a dark place. And it means a lot to me that Buzz is getting recognition. And I wanted to give him a special congratulations from something he did to me that was much more important than anything he did on the mat. So thanks a lot, Buzz. I love you. I love you, Kathy, and your family. And congratulations for an honor well-deserved.
And our runner-up in that category is pretty well known himself, Neil deGrasse Tyson, who is an astrophysicist, and he's a really renowned popularizer of astrophysics.
Neil has made science cool again.
Yeah.
Or maybe just made it cool because there wasn't a whole lot of like people, he's got the Star Talk podcast. He's at the Hayden Planetarium. He's incredibly hard to track down. I've been trying to get him on my show for years and nobody returns freaking phone calls or emails from that place. So if by chance you're listening, you're probably not. Give me a call. I'm trying to get you on the show. All right.
Okay.
More.
Now, as always, we're going to sum it up, and this is Kevin's new thing. Instead of Matt Cliff's notes, we're calling them Matt Kevin's notes. Kevin, review this show for us.
Okay. Buzz Wojcicki is wrestling's most accomplished scientist with many patents and a 2023 induction to the NASA Inventors Hall of Fame. What's better, more championships or individual records? Russell had 11. Chamberlain had 2. Barra 10. Williams 0. How do you pick which was the best player? I think the two schools of thought on that. I wanted to emphasize that Kevin was not at William Mary with Rashi, but was the best wrestler. But the only thing Kevin does know about Rashi's pitching is he could never hit it.
Even now,
I probably I think he passed away 12 years ago, and I still couldn't hit his curveball.
Case in point.
There are 56 3- and 4-time NCAA men's D1s champion. Are they all better than Gable with 2? Maybe not. 5 NCAA D1 and D2 both have 5 4-time champs. D3 has 2. Is D3 tougher? I should say D3. Number 6, was Yogi Berra a better baseball player or philosopher? There's a lot of contention about that. There are over a dozen NFL players that were college All-Americans. 2 are in the Wrestling Hall of Fame, Neil and Hasselrig. Plenty of WWE guys wrestled in college. 2 stand out. Lesnar for his size and charisma, and Neil for his 2 NCAA D1 titles and an Olympic gold.
Well, that'd be
9,
annual, but yeah.
The small school NCAA D2 PSAC has won 28 or 31 men's NCAA D1 titles and 3 outstanding wrestlers, which is pretty incredible. And there are already 2 4-time NCWC women's wrestling champions, Emily Shilson and Sydney Kimber.
Okay, guys. Now, thank you guys for listening to this. Hope to see many of you at the convention here this weekend. Jason and I will be there. Next month's show is going to be breaking down what colleges the Olympians and world team members come from. This will be for both men and women. And that show will be Wednesday, August 16th, 2023, 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Kevin and Jason, do you have anything else to say?
No, just looking for another trip to convention and see what we can do to come up with more content and more geeky MatStats for you, because we geek out on this.
Looking forward to hearing about your trip to the convention.
Okay, for my fellow co-hosts, Jason Bryant, Kevin Hazard, I'm Glenn Gormley. See you at the convention.